Hello. We're starting Swampland Flowers, and you're just going to love the way this particular Zen master decided to tell me he wanted to be introduced to you. And he's laughing right now because he knows I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm crazy, what do you expect? The character in my mind that I pretend to be the characterization of this particular master wishes to be introduced with a song. His name is Zen Master Da Hui. Okay. Master Da Hui, Hui, Master Da Hui, Hui, Master Da Hui, Da Hui, Da Hui. It came to me just moments before I turned on the, like, oh my God, how funny. Happy Da Hui, happy Da Hui. Alright. That play that good? Good. Look at that. So let's get to know this crazy guy. Why I would characterize him such a way. Which I tell you is the first time he's characterized himself to me this way before, so consider his humor for you. Here we go. Let's meet Master Da Hui. Da Hui was born into the cosmopolitan world of the Sung dynasty. It was an age when both rationalistic philosophy and practical invention flourished, when printed books multiplied and the arts reached a mature sophistication still admired today. Communication and commerce intensified. 5 Chinese cities had populations over 1 million. Talents from all over the country were drawn into the brilliant circles of the imperial capital. This was no charmed golden age, unself-conscious and unquestioning. This was no charmed golden age, unself-conscious and unquestioning. The political sensibilities of many upper-class Chinese were affronted by the relative weakness of the dynasty toward the powerful barbarian states pressing in on the north and northwest. And reform measures to strengthen the government and augment its revenue were great issues of controversy among gentlemen of affairs. The productive classes felt the pressure directly, as it was they who had to finance the swollen, ineffective army, and the heavy payments of silver and silk sent as tribute to the enemy. Pressures of the taxation undercut the position of the small producers, more and more of whom had to give up their independence for the patronage of a big landlord who could fend off the tax burden through political pull. As the government tried to increase its revenue, it succeeded more in driving the nation's wealth beyond its own reach into powerful private hands, while millions of little people were deprived of their livelihood altogether. Finally, in the 1120s, the dam broke. In 1126, the forces of the barbarian Qin state to the northeast captured the capital Pine. Along with the reigning emperor, his retired father, and a large number of high officials and top courtiers. Soon, the Qin had set up their own puppets over the vast stretches of China north of the Yangtze, and even the cities of South China were not immune from their raids. The Sung government regrouped around a new emperor and a new capital in the south, and eventually settled on a policy of acquiescence to Qin rule over North China. The old capital of the northern Sung became the capital of the Qin, Pine, the modern Kaifeng, just south of the Yellow River, while the southern Sung ruled from Lin'an, the modern Hongqiao, in Zhejiang. Chan Buddhism by Sung times was outwardly flourishing, and had arrived culturally and socially. The impact of Chen teaching and style had been felt up to the highest level of society, and many highly placed gentlemen of affairs considered themselves adherents. When Da Hui lived, some 400 years had passed since the early greats of Chen's florescence had opened mountains, clearing land in remote spots for their followers to farm for their livelihood. Now there were large official establishments with revenues assigned by the state. Recognized adepts could be summoned by imperial invitation to take up residence and teach at these centers. Control over the possessions in the capital of these places could become the object of conflicting desires and power struggles. Established Buddhism was certainly not free of the taint of worldly ambition. Da Hui's teacher Yuan Wu often exclaimed how numerous phony Chan followers had become. Da Hui was born in 1088 in Husanqing, just south of the Yangtze River in Anhui, a son of the Si family. At school, he soon showed a preference for Buddhism over worldly studies. Even at an early age, he was considered remarkable throughout the vicinity. At the age of 16, he left home. At 17, he dropped his hair, having his head shaved as a monk. He also took delight in the doings of the Chan school and read through the records of all the 5 houses, named for the classic masters of Chan, Kuei Yang, Lin Qi, Cao Tong, Yun Min, and Fei Yin. He especially liked the words of Yun Min, yeah, and his teacher, Yuan Wu. Oh, or his teacher was also Mu Chu. Oh, Young Min's teacher, Mu Chu. Okay, Mu Chu. But he had doubts about the 5 sects, since originally there'd only been but one Bodhidharma. Why were there so many schools? By nature, he was exceptionally talented and not bound by convention. At 19, Da Hui began his travels, following the traditional practice of Chan of visiting various communities and seeking instruction from the teachers there. Even in this early age, Da Hui could be taken for a later embodiment of the previous Chan masters. From one, he sought instruction on Hetsai Tao's 100 verses eulogizing the ancients. Hetsai verse comments on 100 well-known public cases of Chan, which became the kernel of the Blue Cliff record of Da Hui's teacher, Yuan Wu. The teacher would not offer a word of explanation, but made Da Hui express his own view. In every case, Da Hui completely comprehended the subtle meaning. The older master exclaimed, "You must be someone who's come again." From long contact with Cao Tong tradition communities, Da Hui understood their message thoroughly. But he saw the formalized, ceremonious way they certified the transmission and repudiated it, thinking to himself, if there were a transmission in Chan, how could this be the self-realized, self-awakened to a dharma of the ancestral teachers? Later, he was directed to go to Master Chun of Chan Tang when Da Hui first got there, his intellectualism was unrestrained. One day, Chan Tang asked, "Why are your nostrils boundless today?" Da Hui replied, "Because I'm at your place." And Tang said, "You phony Chan man." Again, when Da Hui was reading a scripture, Chan Tang asked, "What scripture are you reading?" He answered, "The Diamond Sutra." Tang said, "Well, this dharma is everywhere equal without high or low. Why is Yungchu mountain high and Peifeng mountain low?" Da Hui replied, "This dharma is everywhere equal without high or low." And Tang said, "You could be a lecturer's assistant." One day, Chang Tang said, "Reverend Cao," that's Da Hui's initiatory name was Tsung Cao. "You understood my chant here at once. When I had you explain, you could explain, and when I had you give formal talks or give general lectures commenting on and extolling the ancients, you could do that too. There's just one thing that's not there. Do you know what?" Da Hui answered, "What?" Tang said, "You only lack this one liberation. That's in the burst of power. If you don't get this one liberation, there's Chan while I'm talking with you in private, but as soon as you leave the private room, there's not. There's Chan when you are awake and thinking, but as soon as you fall asleep, there's not. If you are like this, how can you be a match for birth and death?" Da Hui replied, "This is precisely my point of doubt." And then when Chan Sang was extremely ill, Da Hui asked him, "If you don't recover, whom should I take as a teacher so that I can complete this great affair?" And Tang said, "Well, there's a fellow from Szechuan named Chin. Yan Wu's initiatory name was K.E. Chin. Though I don't know him, you must place your reliance in him, and you'll be able to complete your affair. If you see him without completely comprehending, then go on practicing, and later in life you'll appear and learn Chan." When Da Hui met him, Yuan Wu was staying in Sin Ning Monastery in the imperial capital, Ping. On his way there, Da Hui said to himself, "I'll make 9 summers the time limit. If his Chan is no different from the other places and he falsely considers himself right, then I'll write that there is no Chan. The great scriptures or treaties is better than wasting energy on getting bogged down for years. By cultivating the fundamentals, I will not slip from being a man of the Buddha Dharma in future lives." When he got to see Yan Wu, he was asking for instruction all day long. Yuan Wu brought up Yun Min's saying, "East mountain walks on water," and had Da Hui come to grips with it. Da Hui offered him some 49 replies, but Yuan Wu wouldn't approve. One day, Yuan Wu had gone up to a seat to teach the assembly, and he cited Yun Min's words and said, "I am not this way," if somebody asks, "What is the place where all of the Buddhas appear?" What? I am not this way. If someone asks, "What is the place where all the Buddhas appear?" I just say to them, "From south comes a fragrant wind, producing a slight chill in the recesses of the palace." Hearing this, Da Hui emptied out, and thought he was enlightened. Yuan Wu investigated and found that although Da Hui had managed to get before and after cut off, so the aspect of motion does not arise, yet he was still settling down in purity and nakedness. He told Da Hui, "It wasn't easy for you to get to this stage. Too bad that having died, you are unable to come back to life. Without a doubt, words and phrases are a great disease, but haven't you seen the saying, 'Hanging from a cliff, let go, and agree to accept the experience. After annihilation, come back to life. I couldn't deceive you.' You must be aware that this truth exists." Da Hui said, "Just based on today's attainment, I'm already joyous and lively. I can't understand any more." Yuan Wu directed Da Hui to spend time receiving and conversing with gentlemen of affairs who come calling. Whenever Da Hui entered his room for private instruction, Yuan Wu brought up the same saying every time. "Having words or wordlessness, both are like clinging vines on a tree." Questioning him with this, Yuan Wu would immediately say, "Wrong, that's not it." As soon as Da Hui opened his mouth, Da Hui said, "The truth is like a dog looking at a pan of hot oil, wanting to taste it but unable to, wanting to give it up but unable to. And Yuan Wu said, "You've described it very well. This is the unbreakable trap, the thicket of thorns." One day, Da Hui said, "I hear that when you were at Wu Tzu, you asked about this saying. I wonder what Wu Tzu said." And Yuan Wu laughed but did not answer. Da Hui said, "At the time you must have asked in front of the assembly. What's stopping you from saying it now?" Yuan Wu said, "I asked the meaning of having words or wordlessness. Both are like clinging vines on a tree. Watsu said, describe it, and it can't be described completely. Depict it, and it can't be depicted accurately." I also asked, "How is it when the tree falls and the vines wither?" Wutsu said, "It comes along with it." These words, Da Hui was released, saying, "I understand." So then, Yuan Wu brought up several particularly difficult cases in order to question Da Hui, who replied to him, or to them all, without getting stuck. Yuan Wu said, "At last I know I haven't been deceiving you." After this, Yuan Wu accepted him as the heir and as the heir to the true school of Linxi. After his great penetration, Da Hui went back to several figures in Chan where he had doubts about and asked Yuan Wu about them. Yuan Wu said, "My Chan here is like the great ocean. To get it right, you have to take the great ocean and pour it in. You must take a bowl and fill it with a little and stop there. It's that your capacity is only like this. What would you have me do about it? Only few can reach your level. There was one equal to you among my students, but he has already died." Before long, Yuan Wu had divided the teaching duties with Da Hui. Excuse me. Showing that Yuan Wu considered his attainment full enough for Da Hui to be left, or to be fit to guide others. Soon Da Hui was widely esteemed throughout the Chan communities. He came to the notice of the High Master and was given a purple robe and the name Buddha's Son as a sign of imperial honor. When the Qin forces took the Sung capital in 1126, Da Hui was well enough known to be on their list. That's frightening. He was on the list. So, he had to flee south to avoid being part of the booty. The new Emperor Cao Tsung invited Yuan Wu to take up residence in Yinchu Monastery just west of Nanchang City in Kainsky. Da Hui himself went there, and Yuan Wu invited him to be the head monk. Once the Chan master came forth from the assembly and asked, "How is it that the sword is hanging right over you, pointed right between your eyes? Who's you?" I don't know, this is weird. "How is it when the sword is hanging right between your eyes, pointed right between your eyes?" And Da Hui said, "The blood spurts up to heaven." From below the teacher's seat, Yuan Wu held him back with his hand, saying, "Stop, stop." "Well asked, even more amazingly answered." Whenever Da Hui entered Yuan Wu's teaching room, Yuan Wu would always listen to his words. Afterward, one day, as they were going to their private quarters, Yuan Wu asked, "If there were a Chan man like me, how would you deal with him?" And Da Hui said, "What an unexpected good fortune if there were." As Tung Pao said, Having been the executioner all my life, when I meet such a fat fellow, I slice." Yuan Wu laughed loudly and said, "Rather it's you who should enter the room with me and be my teacher. You've pinned me to the wall." By tradition in Chan, only those who surpassed their teachers were really worthy heirs. Yuan Wu asked Da Hui how he'd transmit Bodhidharmas coming from the West. Da Hui said, "I shouldn't always be making up wild fox spirit views." A wild fox spirit is a metaphor for somebody with unrestrained freedom of action, but it also carries a negative sense of one who indulges in cleverness. Yuan Wu also asked, "Sitting on a tiger's head, gathering in the tiger's tail, understanding the source meaning at the first phrase, what is the first, highest, supreme phrase?" Da Hui said, "This is the second phrase." Yuan Wu often said that in recent times Chan had become just a cliché, a nest, for most of the people in the various communities of seekers. But Da Hui he deeply approved, and considered him the lone worthy successor to the lineage coming through Yuan Wu's teacher, Hu Tzu Fei Yin. When Yuan Wu returned to his native Saskatchewan, Da Hui stayed on, building himself a hut behind the Yunchu mountain. Students flocked to him. Later he transferred his teachings activities to the southeast, to Fujian. In 1137, he received an imperial summons to dwell in the Chan Temple on Qingshan Mountain, near the new imperial capital Lin'an, which is Hangzhou. Within a year, over 1,000 disciples had gathered, and Da Hui was becoming known as the great reviver of the Lin Chi Chan. Another year, and the congregation surpassed 1,700. High circles in the government were rent with dissension on whether or not to go on the offensive against the Qin and try to reconquer North China, or to be content with consolidating their southern domain. Repercussions of this political struggle reached Da Hui when a high courtier with whom he was acquainted ran afoul of the prime minister for opposing his capitulationist policies, so that he and all his supposed supporters were sent into exile. Da Hui was stripped of his imperial honors and certification and ordered away from the capital to the backcountry of the southwest Henan, and then to a malarial region in Guangdong. Of course, he continued the teaching of Chan, and in one summer is said to have produced 13 enlightened people. A son of a royal house who was king over the area was greatly impressed when he happened to hear a Da Hui lecture. This man arranged for Da Hui to be exonerated. At the age of 68, after 15 years away, he returned to the heart of the empire and was first assigned to a temple east of the capital, and then back to Qingshan. He requested to be excused from official temple duties, and in 1161 he was allowed to retire to Bright Moon Hall at Qingshan. When his old acquaintance ascended the throne in 1163 as Emperor Cao Tsung, Da Hui came under imperial protection. It was this emperor who bestowed the title Chan Master of Great Wisdom, from which the name Da Hui comes from, and who caused Da Hui's words to be included in the Great Canon a few years after his death. It was 1163, On the 9th day of the 8th month, after showing signs of illness, that Da Hui told the congregation of monks, nuns, and lay people, "Tomorrow I'm going." Toward the pre-dawn hours, after he had written his last bequest and letter to the emperor, the monk who was his attendant asked Da Hui for a verse. In a serious voice, Da Hui said, "Without a verse, I couldn't die." And he took up a brush and wrote, "Birth is thus. Death is thus. Verse or no verse, what's the fuss?" Then he let go of the writing brush and passed on. He had lived 75 years, 58 in chant. Records of his teachings were assembled by his disciples. Wow. Okay, should I save the translator's introduction for tomorrow? Because I don't know, we'll just kind of keep these things short. See it later. Is it? Oh, it didn't.